Hello survivors and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 99 of the show, and in this edition we're shuffling, drawing, discarding, and most of all building as we take a look at the 2010 Bandai spin-off Resident Evil the deck building game. My name is Sai, and have you ever seen someone with 10 knives? I've got to say it's pretty terrific. Joining me on the panel this week, doing what Leon should have done in RE4 and bringing a metric crap ton of ammo with him, it's Fire Button's Steve Valance.
Hey, hi everybody.
Respecking Rebecca from a medic into a grenade production facility, it's Moist Owlet, aka James.
Yeah.
And just call them the self-destruction system, the way they've been clearing out Resident Evil mansions. It's Michael Burger time early.
It's not my fault the game is too easy.
Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on Discord, so join our server now to become part of our fantastic community that includes Resident Evil diehards and newbies. If you'd like, you can support the show via our merchandise store or over at patreon.com/FA-SprayPod for as little as $1 a month. All of this and all of our social media links can be found at our website, faspraypod.com. Shout out to our patrons. Shout out to our latest Patreon supporter, Ben Brooks. Thank you for supporting the show. Thank you all for supporting the show. I don't think we've really talked about this, so this is probably a good space to say, hey, we've been doing some YouTubing things. I'll talk about this probably a little bit more in the next episode, but we've been doing some sort of breaking news coverage stuff. We are going to talk a little bit more about Resident Evil Requiem. Obviously, the last episode we did of the podcast was like an immediate reaction to the first trailer, and we've had some various bits of news come since then. So we've done sort of reaction news videos and bits and pieces. If you want to go check them out, sort of hot off the presses. And yeah, again, do make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, because it's the kind of thing that we're probably going to do more of, especially considering we now have 3 different irons in the fire when it comes to upcoming Resident Evil products. In fact, Steve, take us into a rather stacked edition of the Resident Evil headlines, if you please.
Okay, so news article 1 this time is Resident Evil Survival Unit has been announced for release in 2025.
So yes, this was revealed, or it's kind of announced a week before the actual unveiling, but this is a strategy mobile title that is, I don't know if it's landed well or not. It seems to have not landed at all. Nobody's particularly talking about it, which is an interesting one. I know we planned on doing a reaction video to the announcement, but we were all a little bit cold on it. I think open-minded to see what it is, but also not great. I'm going to be honest. Personally, I'm going to say it was a terrible announcement. They did like a 25-minute stream and showed about 30 seconds of gameplay. It was all very unclear exactly what it is. Steve, how are you feeling about Survival Unit?
I mean, this goes hand in hand with the Capcom showcase as well. I feel like both that announcement and the previous Capcom showcase, not to throw shade, felt more like shareholders meetings than they were actual, here's our new product, come see it, yay. I am not the audience for these things. I'm going to be just straight with you. I will try it when it comes time, but I'm already very skeptical, because you see these kind of YouTube scam ads and stuff where they're using knockoff Resident Evil characters. It feels like one of them, but now with legitimate Resident Evil characters.
Yeah.
So maybe I will go from a rank 1 Leon to a rank 100 boss or whatever the frig. I don't know. But there is a small caveat to this, in that they've got the OG Final Fantasy character designer and artist doing some work for it, and that's ooh.
That was the biggest surprise, I think. Yeah.
So credits to that. Otherwise, the protagonist person they've shown looks literally like a composite Resident Evil mashup with James Sunderland. So I'm now going to pretend he is just James Sunderland, except it's spelled Jayme.
Yep. So this is coming from, I think Joy City is the name of the developers. They were kind of launched out of the back of someone who left Square Enix, Hashimoto-san, who presented the sort of breakdown of the history of the game. Less, as I say, less so the game itself, more just talking about general ideas of the game. But yes, the big surprise was Yoshitaka Amano, who you might recognize as the name behind yes, as Steve said, the classic Final Fantasy artwork, particularly the stuff that appears on the old logos and stuff for the games.
All of the logos.
Yeah, all of the logos, I think, to date. And core character concept art. I always personally, this is an aside really, but I always thought it was really funny that his concept art looks nothing like the final game. And we got a little bit of that here because his concept art, I'm going to be honest, it was crap, which was just a head on a cylinder. It was like, this is the new monster. And then you see what they've turned it into, and it's like this gargoyle-y, vampire-y looking thing. And I'm like, I don't know how you got that from this rough sketch, but fair enough. Didn't particularly look Resident Evil-y to me, but whatever. I'm open to it. I did the Leo point. They got Barry amongst the RE Engine sort of remake cast of characters. Playable Marvin. Playable, quote-unquote. It's a mobile game. Becca from Resistance, which is quite a rather major surprise. Bugs, any thoughts on Survival Unit?
I mean, it's a gacha game, so
yeah, it almost certainly is.
If they haven't announced a price point and it's going to be free, it's going to be a gacha game.
Yeah.
I'll play it. Just to mess around with it. I do have a soft spot for gacha games based on IPs I enjoy. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna lie, I put more time than I care to admit in the Persona 5 gacha game that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So in terms of marketable audiences, I guess, big circle over my face. Yeah, you'll get me with it. In terms of the video, the 25-minute video, there's not much gameplay. It looks a lot like that old, Last Stand Flash game video that we all played on Newgrounds 20 years ago.
Goodness.
But, beyond that, it's if it's Last Stand with Resident Evil characters, I'm fine with that. If it's a gacha game, I suppose I'm fine with that as well. As long as it doesn't have too much predatory pricing. The Persona 5 one's not too bad with it. There's actually a game to play in there. So it's one of those things that I think Hoyoverse in regards to gacha games, yeah. Hoyoverse has a really good balance of predatory pricing model versus actual gameplay that's fun to play. So call me the hater of Resident Evil when I say that I'm looking forward to trying it.
The thing for me is it's I don't know how I feel about it because I haven't seen enough of it to know. So I'm open-minded to it. If it's as simple as it looks, then it probably will get old fast. But yeah, I am with you in the sense that I'm willing to give it a try and make it part of my daily routine to play this for a minute every day and do your dailies, get your your numerous
resources.
Currencies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll see. James, any thoughts on Resident Evil Survival Unit?
Someone said once, if you have got nothing nice to say, you shouldn't say it. It's definitely a gacha game. I played Bugs just brought up Hoyoverse. I played Genshin Impact for hundreds of hours. I didn't put a penny into that game, and I got very good at it. And I got 14 that I wanted, and then I had that was my joy I got out of it. Same with the First Ascendant as well, which is a little bit more predatory. But I didn't put any money into those games. This one, just from the gameplay they showed, it doesn't seem to know what it is. Just. And that might also just be because the presentation was poo. So, you just didn't hear or see anything that was compelling. Yeah, sure, we saw some codes you could put in. Great. We saw a little bit of the battle, which looked like Raid Shadow Legends. Which is, by the way, I played that game also a lot when it first came out. But again, it is pretty predatory. In terms of its microtransaction stuff, there will be an auto battler. That helicopter that comes down, there's a golden light coming. That's how you're going to get your characters. That's your gacha right there.
100%, yeah.
Right, your character's going to come through there. You're going to look for the color. Oh, is it purple? Is it yellow? Will I play it? Yeah, I will. But probably not for very long because it just looks like, it looks just. If you have a look at the Play Store, you have a look at games like State of Survival and similar games. They all have very similar names like Zombie Revengeance and whatever the heck.
Oh,
you know, like they all look very similar, and it immediately made me think of those games, and they do not interest me in the slightest. And like the detail in those short kind of snippets we saw too were not very convincing either. Like having diamonds as a premium currency, collecting resources. We've never done that in Resident Evil, you know, in terms of like an RTS sense. So like we've never done that. Steve brought up the point about the it was the splash art that made me immediately think, you know, this is just, it's so weird because it looks like it's just been drawn over and then redone. Even the models look slightly different, but
yeah, and they've
similar.
got that, like, I can't remember what the term is for it, but it's like teased animation where they're just like pulling at the corners of the image to make it look like they're moving around. But
motion tween.
It's not real animation. The problem with it is kind of twofold. I'm interested in it because I want to see how it completely destroys Resident Evil RE-verse as a celebration of the series. Because in that 2 minutes of gameplay, we already saw more than RE-verse ever did in terms of celebrating the wider history by having someone from Resistance, from having playable Kendo, classic Barry in it, the Merchant from 4 remakers in it, even though it's set in Raccoon City. They've said it's a parallel world, which means they can go all out with it. And so I will be entertained by going, oh my god, I unlocked... Well, Alyssa Ashcroft's in it, for example, so it's not even that weird now, which is weird in itself, to say that there's probably going to be Outbreak characters in this. But, you know, Bruce McGivern from Dead Aim will be in it. Regina from Dino Crisis might show up. Who even knows, right? Crazy costumes and all kinds of stuff. My bold prediction is Alice is going to be in this as well. And this is the first time it's finally going to happen. That splash image is the... It's the sign that you walk past in Remake 2, the umbrella billboard thing, but it has the movie-verse slogan on it, our business is life itself. So I think they are really going to pull from everything, which, you know, maybe good, maybe bad, depending on your perspective. For most people, probably just going to be largely ignorable. Set to release sometime this year. On the App Store, it's dated December 31st, but that I'm sure that's just a placeholder. That's how these things usually work when it comes to mobile games. So I guess we will continue to cover that as it goes forward. We'll see what, you know, that becomes.
Can I add something at the end?
Yeah, please do.
I do want to say as well that this game's going to do very well.
Oh,
it's a mobile game, and mobile games do incredibly well. So, like, the positive, because I've been quite negative, the positive side of this is that it is going to fund future Capcom projects quite handily as well. Because with every mobile game, whether it be small, whether it be big, it's all got whales in it. Which whales are people who have a lot of money who will just spend a lot of money in this game to try and get the highest scores.
I just don't understand why, but that's just no, you're right.
Well, they'll spend a bunch of money on it just to complain.
Yes, that's true. Right, well, but it is gonna fund future stuff. So like that's one positive I've got to say about it.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right. Like, when you look at all those numerous Resident Evil-like rip-offs, I mean, heck, there's a bunch on the consoles, as we know from talking about them in the Discord server, let alone mobile games, that probably make a certain amount of money. So doing something with the official license, absolutely, I imagine it's going to be in safe hands. That's not really the phrase I'm looking for. It'll be around for a while. I think you're right, because there will be people who sink money into it. Whether or not it's worthwhile for that entire length of period, I guess we'll find out. I mean, for one thing, if I'm going to be positive about it, it's nice that it's something new and fresh, and we haven't had a mobile game for Resident Evil for a very, very long time. So who knows? Maybe this opens doors up to, even if you don't like this one, potential mobile games and other stuff that you might enjoy. Who knows?
This is also the same franchise that crosses over with like PUBG and The Division and stuff on mobile, but nowhere else.
Yep.
So I get you. So going from one news story that is obviously non-canon to now something else that's probably not going to be canon. Zach Cregger says his Resident Evil film won't be obedient to the law.
So this comes from a quote from SFX magazine, literally broke today as of the time of recording. Cregger said that he wants to take the title back to its horror roots and be more faithful to the initial games, but then followed it up by saying, and here's the phrase we've heard from every director of a Resident Evil movie, I'm a gigantic Resident Evil game fan. I've played them all. Yeah, okay. I don't know how many times I've looped RE4 again and again. I just love it. I'm definitely not trying to be completely obedient to the lore of the games. I'm trying to tell a story that just feels authentic to the experience you get when you play the games. I don't think I'm breaking any major rules, but I also recognise that no matter what I do, people are going to come for me online, so all I want to do is just make a really good movie and tell a story that's compelling. I know I'm going to be happy with the movie. I hope other people will be too. I will also say, I've never seen a movie like it. It doesn't jump around like Weapons and Barbarian, which are other films of his, but it is still unto itself, which I'm not entirely sure what he means by the last part of that. But yeah, I don't know. This feels like the most non-surprising. Resident Evil director says they're a huge fan, but also this isn't going to be canon. But then I guess there's an argument about, should it be canon? I mean, at least he said he doesn't think he's breaking any major rules, but maybe by saying people are going to come for me online, what he could have actually said there is throw his hands up and be like, hey, I'm not the absolute expert of this, so maybe I've messed something up here. But I don't know. I'm not quite as down on this quote as some people I think are. I don't need my Resident Evil movie to be totally canon. Maybe grey canon could be fun, but he's not come out and said, I guess we'll find out what the final product is, but he's not gone, screw the games. I love the games, but screw the games. I'm doing my own thing. We still know startlingly little about this, I guess. James, how are you feeling about Cregger's movie right now?
Do you think Capcom pay filmmakers to say that?
It's a caveat in their contract. So
they have to say, like the interview, when they go into it. I don't know how it freaking works, but like, they approach them as they say, no, you have to say this. You have to say this, because if you don't say this, the fans are going to come for you. It's like, well, they're going to come for you anyway. But yeah, like we already have a Cregger Resident Evil movie, and that's Barbarian.
That's right.
Because that's definitely at least trailer, and no one can convince me otherwise. Yeah. We watched Barbarian recently in the server, and Sai watched it for the first time, and you saw a lot in there that really, really worked for Resident Evil.
Yep. They could have released that and called that Resident Evil, and I wouldn't even been that mad about it, frankly.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. And I don't think many people. I mean, of course, you get like a lot of. I feel like with the Resident Evil community, it's like you're just trying to basically douse the fire rather than putting it out. And yeah, I think he can do something, because he's done some great movies. Like Companion is really good. Monsters Weapons looks really good. That's coming. Yeah, there was one before Barbarian as well I really enjoyed. But yeah, it's I said in the server, oh look, we haven't heard this, we've heard this before, but at the same time, the only thing he's got to go against is fan expectations, and we know he's a good filmmaker.
Yeah.
And let's be real with ourselves, Resident Evil isn't a super deep like franchise. You just need to not take the with it. And I think Cregger respects it in a certain way, but that might also be Johnny Capcom talking, who knows.
You say that about fan expectations, and you're absolutely right, but the other thing, of course, that he has to navigate, and we talked about this before, is there is a big difference between him making Barbarian, a film that he wrote and directed, and I think possibly even produced himself, and working with the likes of Constantine, Sony, Capcom, whoever else. There is a lot more corporate complexities to navigate here. I think he's frankly a great pick for a Resident Evil director, having now seen Barbarian. Like I say, he could do something cool, special, single location horror if he wanted to do that again, or trust him to do something different, in fact. But of course, there is a chance that he's going to come up against a few issues with some of the other people at play. That said, as we talked about, they are paying him a handsome penny, so the reports say. So clearly they specifically sought him out and wanted him, it feels like. So maybe they'll stay out of his way.
Just let him cook.
You let him cook. Bergs, how are you feeling about the upcoming new Resident Evil film based on these quotes?
Having seen Barbarian, yeah, y'all have said that already. I think the man's propensity for horror, it could not be overstated. The man is fantastic at it. That said, I'll admit that I'm something of a Welcome to Raccoon City apologist.
Nice.
I actually enjoyed that film for what it was.
Yeah.
Kind of a cool bad B movie. I personally hope that we do see some of that direction come back to it, because it is supposed to be a B movie, and I've championed that. I've carried that torch for as long as, basically as long as we've been doing the program of, it's supposed to be a little campy. I'll take it if it's scary, but I need a little bit of cheese to go with my delicious dinner meal. I joked that the headline for this article is kind of clickbaity, but what headline isn't. So he knows he'll have to deal with fans. He knows that he's going to have to deal with the expectations there, and that the entire Resident Evil fandom is completely reasonable and well spoken with regard to how they feel about stuff. I wish them all the best. Like I hope we see a good movie. Barbarian's great. I haven't seen Companion. I do want to see Weapons. We'll see what he's got.
I think when it comes to the Resident Evil community now, a little bit, and it's really funny because I went on, there is an official Discord for Survival Unit. I looked in on it for a minute, and it was people arguing about who the best character is, of course, because that's the only conversation people seem to want to have anymore. And I think when it comes to like a director stepping up to the plate here to make a Resident Evil movie, there's so many potential hoops that you could jump through to please the audience that you pick one, you are going to miss all the other hoops, and you are going to piss loads of people off no matter what you choose in terms of setting, character, style, and stuff like that. So maybe, frankly, and my hope for this movie is just skip all the hoops and do your own thing. I'd love for it to be set in the universe. If it's gonna be Raccoon City related, or we don't know that for sure, but I imagine there's a high chance.
I have an anticipation for that.
I was just gonna say, set it in there, set it around there. It doesn't have to bump into any pre-existing events, but you can plug it into and refer to major plot points. But yeah, go ahead.
I think the fact that he mentions having played Resident Evil 4 a bunch is telling.
Yeah, that's very true.
And honestly, I think given as it, with the exception of, again, this is just my opinion, you can hate me on the internet. It's engagement. I think, with the exception of Remake 3, I think Resident Evil 4 is the most cinematic. In terms of like big set piece moments, big action moments, and the most paced as per like what you might see in a cinematic adventure project. So if it is Resident Evil 4, we've got a tight cast of characters. It's just Leon, it's just Ashley, it's monsters, there's villains. It's not like you're trying to get every single person in Raccoon City together. So that'd be cool. Like that's my call, is that it's going to be a Resident Evil 4 movie.
Interesting. I do wonder about that when he's like, I've played them all. I don't know how many times I've played RE4, and it's like, it's funny how you say RE4, which you could be referring to the remake, which is the most recent game, which does also make me go, again, as James has kind of pointed out, maybe Capcom told you to say that. I don't want to be that person. Having seen Barbarian, it feels like it was genuinely influenced by Resident Evil 7.
Yes.
But because of the history we've had with these directors saying these kind of things, and then it turns out that, Johannes Roberts just was playing Remake 2 a bunch, and that was about it. I don't know. Steve, any thoughts on the Cregger verse?
Can you imagine if he just came out and said, yeah, this is going to be canon, deal with it? Like, that would have been even more amazing. Like, I would have accepted that as just like a straight, solid shot to the gut. Because to be fair, like, he is right about Resident Evil fan reactions. Because, like, the reaction to Welcome to Raccoon City, the Netflix show, even Death Island in some corners. You know, Resident Evil fans, when it comes to the movie space, are incredibly hard to please. Which, you know, I get. Yeah. I'm also one of those fans, and I pretty much didn't like any of those projects, if you hold a gun to my head. Yeah, no, having seen Barbarian, not to blow smoke up this film's arse as we all apparently have, but it is pretty much the closest you're going to get to RE7, the movie, with its like serial number filed off. If they let this man cook, it could be something pretty special. Like, I don't care if it's really true to the law, but also you take these big directors, you give them a big budget, and they can just squander it and make a big mess. Which is my main worry, because someone who's known for making bangers, also dropping a clanger on a tie-in, it's not unheard of.
That's true.
Yeah. And everyone mentions the looming spectre of Constantine films, and it may not even be his fault. So I hope they let the man cook. Personally, if it turns out to somehow be Resident Evil 4 the movie, go for it. It's something different, and it's not set in Raccoon City. But also, it would have been even funnier if he just came out and said, "Yeah, I've played all the Resident Evil games, even crap like Code Veronica Gun Survivor 2." Like that would have been like straight there. This is my man. But unfortunately, we'll just have to wait and see. Show us a trailer.
Indeed.
So, in slightly more straightforward, happy-go-lucky game preservation accessibility news, Resident Evil 2 and 3 are coming to PlayStation Plus Premium this summer.
Yeah, this isn't exactly breaking news, is it? This dropped at the beginning of June during the Resident Evil State of Play, but obviously we didn't talk about it because we were too busy just specifically talking about Requiem on the last episode. But this was also part of that stream where they dropped it in there kind of on the lead up to, the grand unveiling. And long awaited. I think it's worth talking about because it's a long awaited thing. It's not perfect. We want a classic collection. We'd like a physical release. You know, you can pick holes in it and say, I want this and I want this. And I think, there is some measure of fairness to all of those kind of criticisms. Put it on Steam, etc., etc. But it's a start. And it's nice that these will be available this summer. They're just dated for this summer. Last I checked, there is no release date yet. The Twisted Metal games that they announced, 3 and 4, are literally, they'll be out now by the time the podcast drops. So in theory, Resident Evil is up next, and it could be any time in the next few weeks. With RE1, it was possible to bring, if you bought it on the PS3, to bring it forward to a more modern console. If you get in there before the PS3 servers shut, it's possible that these are just, it's possible, we don't know for sure, but it's possible that these are just the PS3 store versions being brought forward as well. So if you already own them, or if you go and buy them, you might be able to get them brought forward, rather than the having to pay for a subscription service like PlayStation Plus Premium. Still, regardless, Steve, you're right, this is good news, isn't it?
In one way, my mind's of several different, it's racing, because with the availability of these games being increased, but also not being packaged into some kind of collection, it does kind of still think it's just locked to PlayStation and PC, which does leave out Nintendo and Xbox, which is a shame. But I mean, it's still a step in the right direction. My only other thing is, like you said, subscription locked. If it isn't a case of grandfathered in like Director's Cut, that is kind of shady, not allowing people to buy it. But that being said, even the base DualShock version of RE2 and the version of RE3, it's a pretty good time. So, as a lifelong Resident Evil 2 is my favourite game, I'm pretty sure that being available to more people, I'll always be happy about.
Yeah, indeed. Any thoughts on this, James Bergs? Any particular, or is it as simple as that?
Good for PlayStation users.
Good for PlayStation users who have PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
And people so there's something to be said about bringing those older games back forward, because we have a whole generation of fans now who haven't played them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And we have people now who can go play Remake 2 and then play the original and then realize that
it's a superior game.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. That said, Resident Evil 3 has been my favorite Resident Evil game for a very, very long time. It was my very first one. When people talk about their Resident Evil game, mine is the Nemesis game. And I'm excited to get to check it out again on something more modern. I hope they get some upscaling treatment or something.
I wouldn't hold your breath. Not to just shoot back in, but the director's cut port was kind of... I actually think it ran better on PS3. It's got a weird...
Yeah.
It's got a misshapen 4x3 letterbox that was kind of like off-center in a vertical fashion.
Oh, no.
So I don't know. 2 and 3 might not be like that. The director's cut was it was weird. It wasn't quite up to what I would consider a perfect port. Let's put it that way.
Doesn't even have trophy support, does it? I don't think.
No.
RE1 director's cut. So that's quite basic stuff, as it were, or at least from my perspective. So
I have to
James,
wonder if it's just like a you know how Game Pass and all these other things, they basically go to the companies and like offer them can we put this on a service? We give you a fee. I wonder if it's just that, and it's nothing more than just Sony, Capcom have a deal in place to just put these games forward. Nothing fancy.
yeah, totally. But yeah, you guys are right as well, where it's like it's kind of a shame that it's not coming to other systems as well. I totally agree with that. James, any more thoughts on this?
Nah.
And then the final thing for the news, for this extended version of the news, is to check back in about Requiem, because like I said, we have covered this a little bit in groups of twos and stuff on the YouTube channel, but we haven't had just a sit down chat about how we're feeling about Requiem now that we are just over a month out from the announcement. And of course, the following news that the game will be in first and third person perspective, which you can choose on the fly. I mean, you have to open a menu to swap. It's not like a button press like some games, but still, it's pretty major news. It's something that people theorized and hoped for since, well, Shadows of Rose, but frankly, beforehand, people wanted the kind of ability to swap. And obviously that opens up a bunch of things about what this game could potentially be, as did the Capcom Spotlight, which was quite light on details. There was talk about Leon not being picked as a character because he wouldn't be spookable, which is fair, which has led people to take that as fact and led some people to take it as a tease, and how it goes. There was also the mention that they, early into the game's development, were working on an online multiplayer title, an open world title, and Resident Evil Requiem is not that. So all the things we discussed in our last episode about how the open world might work, looks like that might not necessarily be the case. But yeah, how are we feeling about Requiem? Steve, I'm going to start with you actually, because I think I've spoke to you about it the least. How are you feeling so far about RE9?
Still pretty hyped, to be honest. Like, even if it's quote unquote not open world, what is an open world in a Resident Evil game sense? Like, you could argue that the mansion is an open world and you explore different spokes to find out where you need to go next. So I'm very much still like, I still expect a reasonably explorable space. Even if it's like you do the Raccoon City bit, then you do this bit, then you do this building bit. I won't be too broken up about that. In the strangest possible way, I'm both excited for the fact that you can camera swap, and also disappointed, because that means that there is probably shots that will be better visually suited in one camera angle than the other, which means catering for both. You normally lose a bit in the middle, but also accessibility for all of my friends who can't do first person. I'm on board with that. Let everyone play the dang game, not just that's cool by me. Isn't there something along the lines of people have been like scouring the internet for different signs and things, and now we know the name of the actual building she's in most of these trailers?
Yes, Rhodes Hill Civic Care Centre, which I think they might have actually just outright acknowledged at this point. But I think most important to that is that the guys over at Resident Evil Podcast pointed out that there is a sign in the underbelly scenario of Resident Evil Outbreak, which is the subway, that points towards a Rhodes Hill. So either that's a cute reference, or this care centre that we've seen in the Capcom Spotlight and so on, with the big tall monster stalking Grace around, either that's in or around Raccoon.
This speculative analysis stuff, this is the fun that leakers can't take.
This is the fun bit.
This is leakers' ruin. So I'm so glad that we have people going into playing literally Outbreak going, that's from this. That madcap thinking is amazing. Okay? Don't let people ruin it. Don't let leakers ruin it. I hope we find out more deep cuts like this, because obviously someone's played Outbreak at Capcom HQ and remembered that they've got characters like Alyssa and took this. That's my main takeaway, and I'm really excited for that.
Mm. Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair. With the perspective thing, I will say that I do kind of love, like, everyone's having that conversation about how are you going to play it for the first time. Several people have asked me that, and there have been talks from people who saw internal and in some case played internal demos that it said first person recommended in brackets while playing as Grace. And we talked about this before, but the then theorizing that maybe some sections will be third person recommended. And my first attempt is going to be trying to track that as much as possible and always play the recommended one to get this sort of perfect version of the game. And then, of course, play through it completely in first, completely in third. Resident Evil is great for replayability, and this is just kind of adding another thing to that. But yeah, you're right. Accessibility is the other major thing here. Bergs, how are you feeling about Requiem at this point? I don't think we've spoken since the podcast. So how's your hype?
Still high. I think the ability to switch, like Steve said, is an interesting way to approach the game. In terms of how I anticipate playing it first, I want to withhold judgment until we get a demo.
Yeah.
So I can try it out. Like, my old school Resident Evil head is telling me that third person is going to be the way to do it. Remake 2 and 3 were both fantastic games. I've actually played Remake 2 in first person, and I don't think you lose anything. I think it's maybe a little more atmospheric, especially given that she's going to be carrying around a lighter a lot of the time. I imagine, knowing me and how I play video games, I'll do it in some combination of both. I think that's what the real benefit here is. It gives you that's the accessibility option, but I can do my deep exploration of like quiet rooms in first person mode. Yeah. And then once I got monsters coming at me, I can switch back to third person. I get a bigger view of my surroundings, more control over my like direction, how I engage with the environment. I think ultimately speaking, this is just a really great example of power that the engine that the game has created and has. I do plan to stay kind of spoiler free with regard to leaks or speculation. Yeah. The game is coming out soon enough that I don't feel like I need to again, aside from like doing the podcast and when we talk about it then, no, I'm excited. I'm still excited. Like, I couldn't be more excited for the game. I love that it's new characters. I love that it's a new take on Raccoon City. I love that it's modern. Let's claps, everybody.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm loving the direct feed of information. I hope they keep it up at this kind of pace so that we really only see like 5% of the game before it comes in. What are we like?
Yeah.
7-8 months out, not far.
When we think about how they did Village, like Village had everybody thinking that Lady D was going to be the biggest, baddest boss in the whole game.
Yeah.
And then she was really kind of like, when we actually dove into Village, was not a very large portion of the game at all. Definitely, in my opinion, less memorable, but we're digressing away from the original point there. So I do hope that we do get a similar level of like, you showed a whole lot of that first zone of the game. Which I'm happy with, because, again, it showed us a lot of good detail. So, again, hoping for more of that.
Yeah. Presumably the next time we see it, it's going to be Gamescom, where they've announced that there's going to be some demo to play, probably on the convention floor. Whether that comes to consoles right away or eventually, systems, I should say, remains to be seen. But that will probably be the next time we see the game, which is looking to be August 20th to 24th. So it won't be too long until we see a little bit more, maybe. But again, yeah, hopefully not too much more. I'm in that camp with you as well. James, how are you feeling about Requiem at this point?
Yeah, I said a lot on the news things that we did, but yeah, very excited for it. I said on those as well that I don't think we've seen like hardly any of this game.
Yeah, for sure.
And I love that because I loved it about Village. And we only really been told 2 locations, which was Renwood Hotel, which I think is where this is my own speculation, but is where Alyssa was killed.
Yeah, presumably.
And Rhodes Hill. And that is, it's not a huge amount of things. So yeah, it's really cool to think. I love being kept in the dark about this stuff, and they've really advertised it well. They've shown just enough. Capcom are really good at that, especially with their mainline stuff. In terms of, going back to kind of the open world stuff, I said this on a video as well, but open world doesn't mean open world. Nowadays, it can mean hub systems leading to large instances, with many collectibles and things to do. And since we're in a city, and since we've also heard that this is this might just be a buzzword, but this is the biggest Resident Evil to date. That might also be hyperbole, but who knows in this gaming climate. It's cool. I've also a couple of things that I didn't say during the videos and stuff. I think we're going to be really going deep into kind of a lot of psychology stuff and messing with mental states and stuff like that. In the most recent video or the most recent showing, you saw the Rorschach image in the background, the chair in the middle, almost like a therapy room. And the Rorschach test is meant to record folks' perceptions of the world around them and stuff, and even building personality tests from it and stuff. So, and we already know that Grace is being brought there and is being experimented on in some way, or is being observed. So I'm interested to see where that goes. And then on top of that, there's also a line that I think is Alyssa. She says that Grace says she's special, to take down that thing. That's I'm paraphrasing there, but it's what she says. And there's something definitely without saying it, there's definitely something very. I think whatever Grace has to fight is extremely close to her as a person, inside her own mind. But yeah, I don't want to go any further beyond that because I want people to experience the game. But yeah, excited for it, and I can't wait. And I can't wait for Gamescom either.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Well, that'll wrap up a rather mammoth edition of the news and take us into the building game. And now, reading the file Janitor's Daily Reports from Resident Evil Outbreak, Nero, who you can follow on Blue Sky at Nero.
September 17th. I was told to check the alarm device every week from now on, but I used to only do it twice a year. The new owner seems to be a bit of a worrywart. Who would want to break in there? September 21st. I had a drink with Todd, the security guard. He was grumbling about the new type of card key he saw in the rooms. That number on the south door should be enough. What a pain. September 22nd. Todd left a card key in the bathroom and I brought it to him. When I told him to keep it together with his daughter's photo, he seemed embarrassed. He sure can be a jerk. September 23rd. That strange noise in the boiler room just keeps getting louder and louder. I doubt retightening the bolts and the pipes will help. I'll tell the owner next week. No reason to come in Sunday.
So, Resident Evil, the deck building game. That thing that everyone's been asking us about since the beginning. Obviously, as a podcast that kind of has its foot in the Resident Evil board games, people started asking, are you going to cover the deck building game as well? Tabletop Resident Evil fans out there want to know, and the answer, of course, is yes, but it took us 99 or so episodes to get there. Regardless, we have played Resident Evil the deck building game. This is going to be an episode specifically on the base game. We were going to go, and do everything, but we realised that was going to take a lot more research and study and just put enough time aside to play it and experience all of the many versions of the game. So we're just going to talk about the base game for this. If you don't know what Resident Evil the deck building game is, it is a deck building Resident Evil game. We'll talk about what deck building means when we get there. But this was released by Bandai, who make a lot of board games and the such, in 2010. So it released in the year after Resident Evil 5, which is immediately apparent from some of the designs it does. It had a series of expansions, as I mentioned, Outbreak, Nightmare, Alliance, all released in 2021, and then Mercenaries in 2012. Generally speaking, Resident Evil the deck build game is not available for sale these days, generally speaking, but you can get it on eBay if you're lucky, and it wildly fluctuates in sale price between like £40 and £150 for the base set. So best of luck trying to get your hands on a copy. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a reprint for some while, and there's no indication that it's going to come along, unfortunately. Board Game Geek, which is kind of a pretty major player when it comes to logging board game information and scores, gives it a 6.6. It should be pointed out that Board Game Geek usually pretty restrictive on their scores, I always thought, pretty developed tastes, I guess, and it gives the game a weight of 2.28 out of 5, which is a complexity rating for sort of pick up, learn and play, which is, I think, frankly, a little high for what it is, but that's a thing we'll get into as well. Before we actually start breaking down what the game is and how we feel about it, has anyone played the game before? I do kind of know the answer to this. Steve, what's your prior experience with the deck building game been like?
I have played it a handful of times now. As we all know, former proprietor of Fire Button Games, YouTube channel, I have a close friend called Callum who runs a channel called Genius in Motion. He got a copy of the deck builder to show it me and play it. We recorded a full Let's Play of it. Plug. So you can actually see me play it for the, I believe, second time recorded, which was about, it was a handful of years before the pandemic. Yeah, so, but it's only those handful of times but before this recent round of playing for the podcast.
I see. And James, you were also part of this, I think?
I was, yeah. It was a couple of years before the pandemic because we started recording, so like 2017, 2018. Yeah, and so I was like really new into the fandom at this point.
Yeah.
Like properly, I mean. And yeah, I think it's funny because I think the thing that made me go, oh yeah, I'll play it is because Steve said to me that you can play as Rebecca Chambers. So that was
the way to get your
immediately. I was like
a moth
I
flame.
hate that building. I hate deck building games, but it's got Rebecca Chambers in it, so let's go.
Fair enough. I have been aware of it for a long time, but this is my first time actually getting to play it, despite years of every now and then looking up to see if I can find a copy, but also just having people say, hey, you aware of this? Do you own this? You should own this. And it's like, yeah, great, but it's not all that easy to get a hold of. But yes, so this has actually been my first time playing through Resident Evil deck building game. Bergs, any prior experience or knowledge of this before the last few weeks?
I've obviously been aware of it. I worked at a game store when it was like releasing the content and coming out. At the time, I was really into other deck builder games. The first time I played it was with y'all. But, the stats you told me don't surprise me at all.
All right, let's talk about the gameplay of deck building game, which is kind of the core thing here, but we'll talk about the basic sort of elements of it. I guess, just off the top of my head, if you don't know what a deck building game is, it really is as simple as it sounds. You start with a certain number of cards in your deck, and you are looking to find a way to increase or decrease that however you like. We have in this game in particular, and this is very common for the genre, like a field of cards in front of you that you can pick up by spending resources in order to purchase and add them to your deck, and then you're cycling through that deck and trying to chain abilities and so on to get better things, get rid of crap things that you don't want anymore because they keep showing up. You keep drawing them when you're looking for the good stuff. That's the main thing, is trying to sort of shape the deck the way that you want it and get rid of the chuff and get it in a way where you can start making really big turns, kind of like a setup. There's also a term, this is a different genre really, but like engine builder, but it's like a tenth of that. It's like a simple version of that where everyone goes around and they play their turn. In a Resident Evil deck building game, it is as simple as you draw your hand of 5. You can purchase a card off the field with the gold that you draw. And the other thing, with the main element of the game, is sort of the unique selling point, if you like, is the Mansion deck, which is a deck of monster cards face down and shuffled that you will be drawing from the top of. and you compare the health of the monster you drew with the power of the weapons that you have, and also the ammo that you drew in order to fire these weapons. And you can potentially, you can fail these monsters, which is bad for you, and you lose a little bit of hit points, and we move on throughout the game. Or you can beat these monsters, add them to your what's called decorations. Enough decorations will unlock your character's unique abilities, all the while as you cycle through the mansion deck looking for the boss monster, which in the base game is the Ouroboros monster. And yeah, you beat that, you win the game. Resident Evil is a deck building game, can be played cooperatively, it can be played competitively, it can kind of be played cooperatively, competitively if you're into that. It's with many tabletop things, it kind of depends on how you want to do it. For the most part, we played cooperatively. I know that's not the entire experience for everyone, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense as a sort of rundown of the elements. James, how do you feel about the sort of the basics of the game then, those sort of core elements?
Yeah, I want to highlight that we played 1.0 of this game as well, just so, because there's going to be some things that folks will hear, and you would have likely have played the later editions, which we have not done yet, which we're planning to do in the future, I think. But yeah, the 1.0 was the first iteration of this game. It's really simple. It's got elements of complexity, like if you can combo or team up to do things. Unfortunately, with the game loop, like there are rules that are really contradictory or they're confusing.
Yeah.
It wants you to compete, even in story mode, but a lot of the character cards themselves are built to work cooperatively. The cooperative nature of the game was my favorite part of it, and other than myself, I'm not really a competitive person, so it didn't really, like, every time I saw a PvP card, I was like, ugh, and it didn't make sense for the game either, or the gameplay loop we were going through. Yeah, it just would have been better if those rules were clear in 1.0, between the different modes as well, instead of, because I felt like as we were playing and as we were revealing these mechanics and stuff, I felt like these rules were just being shaken up and thrown in without any kind of proper thought. And that came especially clear when Steve and I played the extra mode Versus, which we'll go over later, because that mode was practically anemic of strategy at all.
Have you got back-to-back, James?
You know, you got back-to-back,
You got
Steve.
back-to-back, yeah.
And it was just so boring. But it might also be because, I'm not a competitive person. So when these things pop up, like, I don't really care if I win or lose. I'm just there to take part, you know? But yeah, I just felt like, the basic gameplay loop of this game was confusing, contradictory to its own rules. And, even though it was touted as being cooperative, it went against itself a lot of the time, and that was frustrating to play.
Yes, it is kind of a game of two halves, because on the one hand, it's nice and simple to get the basics down of drawing cards and playing cards and stuff like that, and which is good, because if you're playing a deck builder with a recognizable IP, there's a very, very, very good chance you're going to bring in people that have not played the genre before. So to a certain extent, it needs to be pretty simple, and I think it does have the element of, if you haven't figured out that you need to have a plan from the off and start working on it, then the game will rock you and teach you that. Like, you need to have make sure you're bringing in a certain amount of ammo and a certain amount of power each turn, or you are not going in the mansion ever, and you will just cycle round and round and round and round and round and round until someone finally can. So there's that, and you're not punished in a sense for taking your time with it. There's a asterisk to that, which I'll get to. But you're right. As basic as some of the rules seem to begin with, there will be cards that contradict. And this happens in board games in general, and it's not massively uncommon, but it happened a few times for us where we were drawing cards that seem to contradict rules in the book, or rules on other cards, and that kind of thing. And when it comes to strategy, yeah, you'll learn a strategy, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the next bit as well. But none of the strategies really impacted the overall game outside of your play space. And the thing for me that can be such a killer with tabletop games is minimal player interaction. I needed so much more from this in terms of doing stuff with you guys, whether it's working together or competitively. Most of the builds and most of the cards on the field just don't interact with any other player. It's just you building your own thing, and that's fine. And the only experience I really had otherwise was Rebecca Chambers' ability to sort of, as alluded to in the intro, palm items or something off to somebody else, which is meant to be a competitive thing. I imagine you're meant to send junk to people that don't want it to make their deck more full of crap. But we were just using it to cycle grenades over to Jill Valentine, who can use a grenade and then keep a hold of it because she's a demolition expert, which was cool. But where's the rest of those things? There was just like one ability that did that kind of thing, and everything else was quite insular, which is always a bit of a shame with these kinds of games, all games in general for me. Steve, how did you feel about the basic gameplay of the deck builder?
See, as the pretty much of the four of us, probably the most idiotic in terms of deck building strategy, because I'm a real time strategy guy. You know, my strategies are video games. The closest thing I've played is Inscription, I would probably say. So I was the most anemic in terms of strategy, and I had a fun time with it, to be honest with you, mainly because I was rolling with three homies and they had strategies and I was kind of cribbing off of them. Like for example, I have no doubt Bergs is going to talk about the virtues of the Umbrella Corporation card, which is the card to have if it's in the game in that particular mode. So yeah, there is that. More cards in deck equals more power, more capability. I tended to gravitate towards the particular characters that were making their particular firearms stronger. I must admit, I was very much a rogue agent. I wasn't very cooperative. I was very much I want to kill things in that house. But yeah, as the rookie, I had a reasonable time trying to figure out how to play it as a deck builder. But then again, I am coming from a place of ignorance, and I have to acquiesce to that.
I mean, to be fair though, Steve, it was I will say it was quite refreshing to come into a game and you not beat everyone on your first go, which is usually the case. And B, your improvement was like very clear to see immediately. You found a character or found a couple of characters that work for you, and you figured out, okay, this is the strategy that I want to do with this. Like getting Leon and his whole thing where it's like his focus is very much on handguns, get extra handguns, make handguns more powerful. You went from like I don't know what I'm doing to having a strategy as solid as anyone's. So. Don't put yourself down like that. And for the record as well, I know I sound like I've been down on it so far, and I've had a mixed experience. I'll say that much. Chaining stuff is fun and it gets wild, which is the best bit of the genre. Like being able to be like, and then I'll draw this, which allows me to draw another one and play an additional action, and my additional action will allow me to draw two more. And then you have like 15 cards in front of you, and you're like, I don't know how much power I have, but it's more than this much, so let's just draw the card and see what I kill. That was kind of fun when you got to that late part of the game.
The calculator moment. How much power have we got? It would take 5 minutes to try and do the maths.
Pretty much. Bugs, as the resident deck builder superfan, how did you feel about the basic gameplay of Resi's?
It was perfectly playable. It was a very basic deck builder. I do like deck builders a lot. I play a whole lot of them. It was like while you were talking, I was looking back at my shelf, and on my shelf I have 5 different deck builders. I think that in this one, it does a thing that a lot of games do, especially I think in their opening sets, where the theming falls away and the game is too visible to me to really kind of enjoy it, because then it becomes a math problem to my brain. The art wasn't the best in terms of design, and I think my first biggest complaint was the fact that in a lot of deck builder games, when you do have your array of cards, your building, your tableau building, your deck building, food to pull from, you kind of have enough where more than one person at the table can have more than one copy of a card.
Yeah.
But, Steve mentioned the Umbrella Chronicles, and in one of our playthroughs, I think, somebody grabbed 2 of them, another person grabbed 2 of them, there was one left, and then one of us was left without. and you are kind of stuck behind because the way that card worked, functionally speaking, is your turn structure in this deck, but in most deck builder games actually, is you play your hand, generate resources, you have an action to do actions, and then an option to buy stuff. And this one, they also gave you an option to explore the mansion. The Umbrella Chronicles gave you 2 additional cards and an additional action. So when we're talking about, when we mention, playing through stuff and comboing out, that's what we're talking about. That's the fun part about deck builder games. That's the thing that people really want to do in a deck builder, because like nothing feels better than just drawing 20 cards in a turn and being like, all right, so what am I doing? Rubs hands together. I think that the incredibly random nature of the mansion deck admittedly reminds me a lot of the Resident Evil board game. That by designed by our friend Sherwin. It kind of throws a little bit of that like methodical nature of playing a deck builder away, because you're one bad monster away from dying. Now the dying consequence in this one is not really big. You die, you come back, you start off with 20 less health, and you can keep playing the game. So ultimately speaking, it's also a game you play without consequence. Because the consequence of failure is not that bad. Seeing as how like most of the monsters that could and did kill us did a lot more damage than, like, I think we could probably take 2-3 hits on a good time. Anyway, and true. Monsters hit everybody at the table when you failed to kill them. So it was a bit of a group consequence. That when that failure happens, I am interested in playing it some more with the expansion content, and I think I mentioned as much when we're looking at playing it some more. I think I watched y'all play it more than I played myself, because I genuinely I thought it was fine, but I just thought it felt so lacking to me. There's only 3 playable characters. Sorry, let me rephrase this again. The characters also weren't very distinct or even good to a point of Rebecca's amazing. Because she had her ability that popped off really early, and you can get it pretty easily, and it worked. Like her ability kind of felt flavorful and fun. Jill's ability with the refreshing explosive weapons doesn't really feel like Jill Valentine's to me. Like it's who is that? That's not something that Jill does. Jill's not known for being an explosives expert. I think it was Leon had the handgun expert, which kind of makes sense. But also, again, wasn't that good. I saw your crossover one, which actually did popping off pretty nice. That was pretty fun.
I definitely want to talk about that when we actually get to characters.
Yeah. All right, then I'll stop talking then.
It's like Bugs is jumping all over the place.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that's fair. I think moving into the next thing, you kind of highlighted some stuff there was like deeper sort of game feel stuff, and my first heading here was this is as fine as it gets. It might not be baby's first deck builder, but it isn't really that far off. And for that reason, absolutely, I'm intrigued in the expansions as well. I mentioned the sort of the ability to go as long as you like, and our games went pretty long most of the time, and in some cases quite long indeed. And I said, maybe that's a positive the first time you play it while you're trying to figure this out. But overall, the lack of a timer in the base game as it is, and I think there are elements to come that are going to change this, thank goodness, it kind of really hurts the game, because there's no reason not to just go, I'm going to sit here until I've got the perfect hand, then I'll go in. You can just churn and churn and churn and churn forever until your deck is perfect. And that's fine if that's the way you want to play it, but it doesn't help you get better at the game by being more tactical about it. You'll just eventually luck into a good hand, or luck into a situation where you can cast off what you don't need and continue to construct the deck the way that you like. I think the lack of a timer, the idea is, if you're playing competitively, that the decorations that you get for killing the monsters is kind of what you're competing for. So you're kind of incentivized to go into the mansion to get those decorations to keep your score above everyone else's. The problem is when no one's going in, no one's going in. But also the problem is if you go in there and you kill the end boss, it's kind of a you win card because it gives you like, I don't know, 8 victory points or whatever. It's something mad, which is 4 cards in some cases that someone else might have gone in 4 times and beaten it. So if there were 4, 5 maybe cards ahead of you, you could just be like, I beat the boss. Boom, game is over. And I've got other things to say about the mansion deck as well, but we'll get to that as well when we talk about BOWs and stuff. So the game feel is kind of off because the pace and the timing is all out of whack in that regard. And the other thing I had here is Bergs are absolutely right. Certain abilities being broken, everyone swooping for them right away, is kind of doesn't really work. And also it means that the longer a game goes, the staler it gets because all the field cards never change, or at least in the scenarios that we played in the story mode and stuff. It's a set, here are the cards that are on the field. You get handguns, knives, green herbs, and these action cards, and the action cards are the most important stuff because they allow you to build your deck and shape stuff easier and play more actions and draw more cards. But they're always the same throughout the whole game. Like, that ain't good for a deck builder. Best deck builders where it's just like you don't know what's going to come up next. Sometimes you are better off buying a card to see what's underneath it, or in many deck builders you can pay an action to just wipe the field clean and just lay down a whole new set for everyone to pick from. It being like a set thing also heavily affected the pace for me. James, how do you feel about like the game feel part of things?
Yeah, I mentioned before that I'm not a big deck builder person. Like I respect them, but like I really dislike RNG, the RNG of games like this. But like you can offset that with this game because it's so simple. As well as predominantly playing the most broken character in the game, Rebecca. But I'll go over that later. Like, you know, a turn, it's very simple. You have a shuffled inventory. You draw 5 for a hand, play as many as you want or able, discard, and then draw another 5 before ending your turn. That's robust, simple, very typical for deck builders. It suffers from not having enough ways to trash cards unless you customize the resource field or play certain characters like Rebecca. And that's a problem. Yeah, and I think like the start of a typical game, because I was recording these games in turn. So the start of a typical game always goes the same way. You're collecting gold cards to build a deck for the first 10 to 15 turns. Then you spend another 10 trying to slim out your deck before having a chance at exploring the mansion like with ultimate confidence. On paper, that sounds fine, but this takes place over a couple of hours. And it got quite boring sometimes, especially after repeated plays. And yeah, I'll mention it later, but the mansion deck is a big problem there because of that. Because there was no like variation in the mansion deck. I will go over it in character skills, but like I it's not a hot take because I mean nobody has a take about this game, right? But like put that in the bloopers. But I feel like Rebecca Chambers is actually quite well balanced for a deck building game. It's just everything else is crap.
Yes,
you know, like you know, you could elevate other characters to meet her, which I think is how games should be. I think if something is too strong, or if a few things are too strong, because there are actually some pretty broken characters, like other than Rebecca. Like Leon is pretty broken, Claire is pretty broken, Jill is pretty broken.
Sheva can like pretty much stack the deck to make her sniper rifles busted powerful. Like they won't kill the final boss, but they'll kill everything else.
Oops. Yeah, but you have some clear like really bad cards, and you have some resource field cards that make the characters worse as well, and mansion cards that make the characters worse, and just the general gameplay of the game makes some characters worse, like Chris Redfield. But again, I'll go over that later. You know, it's I mean, I think I've gone over like how I feel about the deck builder itself, how it feels to me. Yeah, it's just there's like a void when I think about this game. There's like a void there, and I've tried to stop using the word potential because it's such a hyperbolic kind of term, but like I don't know if there was, because I don't know if like an incredible amount of thought was put into a lot of this stuff. It was just, we had this like basic outline of what this deck builder will be, and here we are. But I'll probably keep rabbiting on, so take over.
I think a lot of the elements are there, and the thing for me is, as well as just like, hey, you just talked about how many of the games go the same way. We would like do one version. There's a story mode basically, and the story mode in this game obviously it doesn't have a story because it's a deck builder. But what it basically is a title for each sort of mission, and then here are the cards that are going to be in the field, and they're different every time. But the problem is they weren't different every time, were they? There was a few cards that were changed, and a lot of stuff was the same. Or it's this card has come back, and also the field wasn't even full for most, if not all of them. So there was only like a few cards, and it was playing a game for that long and I just said basically this before, but it's like it's the same cards, and also the next story mode you play gonna be mostly the same cards. They just needed to be more variety in that front. And I know that makes things harder to balance, and balance was already an issue, and we'll get into that a bit more in characters, but I totally get that. Steve, how did you feel about how did it feel to play the deck builder?
Generally speaking, I had a fun time. Again, good. I'm from the awkward camp. I can see what you're saying about the variances on story mode and the fact that the enemy roster didn't really change much. Like, I know we're not really talking about POWs and stuff yet, but we pretty much faced the entire set most of the time. I think there was like an even easier variant when we were playing Mercenaries mode. And the mansion doesn't even factor in versus mode, but that's an entirely different thing. Like, in terms of speed and pace, I'd say the story mode goes on for ages, especially if you've got 4 players. Me and James played Mercenaries mode. We must have beat that in maybe 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. With a little bit of setup time, obviously. Versus mode, I just gave in. I just said, James, just roll a dice, and if it's this number, you win. If it's this number, I win. Because it was a slog, and that's just basically in a PvP sense. You draw your set, they draw the set, and you counterbalance it. I don't know what playing Yu-Gi-Oh is like, but if it's anything like that, I'm never playing Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what I'm saying. But the base story mode, like. I can see the idea, and the fact that we played version 1.0 and that we have so many complaints about, the cards aren't really offering much variety and much flavour. I feel like that's what the expansions were there to do. So we will, I guess, wait and see. But as basic Steve ass, I was alright. I had fun. But again, you can have fun poking a turd with mates if you've got a stick. It's.
I was gonna say, like, I really had fun playing with my friends.
Yeah. That being said, I am very impressed with how much stuff
that's absolutely real.
Franchise to date, at that point, there was that much stuff that wasn't just from one particular game. A lot of it was like Remake 1 and RE5, but there was outliers.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I am picking it apart because it's quite easy for me to do that. But I did also largely have a fun time, and I'm quite easy to please, frankly, when it comes to like, hey, we put a Resident Evil skin on this. Yeah, okay, fine. I like seeing the things I like and talking about whether or not it was a good reflection of that. Like, I had a good time, and it's so easygoing. Like, there's lots of issues here, but I think the broad package is certainly not offensively bad or anything like that. No. It's playable. It's enjoyable. James, you're right by talking about the big P word there. I was like, oh, okay. It's kind of a feeling of like, oh, I guess that's it. More than anything else for me.
And now, reading the file Operation Report 2 from Resident Evil 2 1998, Matt Bartlett. You can follow on Blue Sky at Matt Bartlett VO.
September 28th. Early morning, 2:30 a.m. Zombies overran the operation room and another battle broke out. We lost 4 more people, including David. We're down to 4 people, including myself. We failed to secure the weapons cache, and hope for our survival continues to diminish. We won't last much longer. We agreed upon a plan to escape the sewer. There's a path leading from the precinct underground to the sewage disposal plant. We should be able to access the sewers through there. The only drawback is that there's no guarantee the sewage disposal plant is free of any possible dangers. We know our chances in the sewers are slim, but anything would be better than simply waiting here to die. In order to buy more time, we locked the only door leading to the underground, which is located in the eastern office. We left the key behind in the western office, since it's unlikely that any of those creatures have the intelligence to find it and unlock the door. I pray that this operation report will be helpful to whoever may find it. Recorder, Elliot Edward.
Let's talk about the balance then. Let's talk about the character skill. I think everyone has kind of mentioned the main one here, with Rebecca being this crazy... she's a great support character if you choose to play it that way. But also in Versus, she can probably be, I'm going to assume, a real menace. Again, thanks to the ability to force junk into other players' decks, which is not something that many, if any, other characters can do, at least speaking on the base game. Meanwhile, I mean, there are characters, and I'll leave it to everyone else to talk about that, varying degrees of usefulness. There are characters where you lay out the field of play and then go, I guess I'm not playing as Barry or Sheva, because the certain weapon that they use isn't here. If there's no Magnum, no point in Barry. If there's no sniper rifles, no point in Sheva. It's like, that's kind of a shame right out of the gate to be like, no, this character is useless this turn, or this version of the story mode, which is pretty sucky. James, how do you feel about the characters?
Whew, okay. There are some incredible character card synergies within this game, and not even synergies with other character cards, but just cards on the resource field and stuff. And then there are some that are terrible. Mm-hmm. I think we all had a pretty healthy spread of each character when we played. I think I played like 4 characters by the time I stopped for this podcast. And yeah, of course, I played Rebecca Chambers twice as well. Again, which turned out to be very, very strong. Did not play her in Versus because I'm going to be real honest. The fact of her being PvP just didn't come across my mind at all, because that's pretty much my entire attitude with this game. It doesn't feel like a PvP game.
No.
And she felt like a support character. So, Rebecca, you could give... I don't think we've explained it. So Rebecca could give her trash cards to her teammates. And trash cards were like cards that you would consume, like green herbs and grenades and rocket launchers.
Yeah.
Anything that had the word trash on it, it was any card you could trash. It was very, very strong. It makes her pretty much mandatory, to be honest, if you want to play this game cooperatively, in a story mode. And yeah, she can also trash any card at the start of her turn if she gets to level 2. So I don't know if we've mentioned, but the more decorations you get, the higher level your character gets, and depending on how strong, well, actually, some of them were actually really wank. So like it didn't matter. Like I think Chris's, you need like 7 decorations, and his second thing was so bad. But I'll go over that in a second. But yeah, it made her mandatory for any game that had grenades and herbs, because they were super plentiful. She could stretch them out, give them to people, make them last twice as long, because it wasn't really a you're not really putting a like a stall on somebody, because when they use those things, they trash them, they're done. So you're just making things last twice as long with her.
Yeah.
And then like when you're paired with the Rebecca and Jill, as I said earlier, like who could reuse explosives, it made for an incredible pairing. Especially because I just kept getting the rocket launcher.
Yeah, you did.
And by the way, that wasn't the only game that happened in. It kept happening in other games too. I kept getting the rocket launcher. It was insane. And by the way, it's complete luck based. So what would happen is I would kill something, I would get the decorations for it, I would get all these really broken abilities, and then I just pass it on to Jill. So then Jill gets her decorations. How does it make sense that Rebecca can repackage an exploded grenade or rocket? Who knows? But it made it fun. It did make it fun because we all kind of looked at the rules and we're like, this doesn't make sense. But I think it was Bergs who highlighted, no, it says any trash card, and we're like, what? Yeah. It was very, very cool. Those moments, by the way, I do like it when even in the rules don't make sense. If they're in the rules, they're there, so you got to listen to them. But yeah, on the other end, there's Chris Redfield, who has the most health. He cannot be healed or hold item cards. By the way, that is his first level ability, that he cannot be healed or hold item cards. It's not just a passive that he has, it's just his first ability. It's not an ability that you can't eat, Chris. I don't get it. He gains, so his ability, second ability, which by the way is about, you need 7-8 decorations, which is an incredible amount. He gains damage based on the amount of times you explore. However, the damage you can push out will never match the sheer amount of monsters to make the skill viable, ever. Because you only get, I think every time you use it, you get +5 damage every card you would draw. And you can just get down by one monster. So yeah, it made it, the sheer amount of monsters, it would just make it unviable. It also makes him absolutely useless against bosses, as you'll just be stacking shotguns to explore, losing more and more damage as you go. It made no sense. Whereas I played Leon and Claire, and I had tons of fun, but other folks have played those too. So yeah, I'm rabbiting. Rebecca Chambers, she's the VIP, she's the MVP, she's the best.
I think, thematically speaking, just to talk about some of the characters that I played as, at least, it was a real mixed bag. Because on the one hand, I guess a positive, one of Ada's abilities is the ability to look at the top card in the mansion deck. I was like, yeah, she's the super spy. That makes sense. And I want to mention that because I want to mention it again later. I was like, that was quite interesting. I actually kind of enjoyed playing as Ada for that reason. I know, shocking, me playing as Ada. Imagine. Of course, I played as Claire, and James is right. It's a good ability. Both of hers is essentially she gets additional ammo for every ammo card she draws, which is great because ammo is necessary for going into the mansion, but also the ammo cards can get additional gold on them when you draw, so it's easy for her to then just purchase more stuff for her deck and get the good stuff that she might potentially want, which is cool. Don't really know what that's got to do with Claire Redfield, though. As usual with Claire, they don't really know what they want to do with her, so she just has these useful abilities. But yeah, more ammo and more money has not really got anything to do with who she is as a character. So thematically, sure, fine, I guess. The most fun character I played as, though, was the last character I played as, which was Krauser. Because
Mr. Soft Serve.
Sometimes that's Mr. Soft Serve himself. Sometimes with these games, you'll read a set of character abilities and you'll go, that sounds dumb, I can't wait to do it. Kind of think, if you played the Resident Evil board games, think Brad, where he's got, a really unique playstyle and it's immediately obvious. Krauser's whole thing, of course, is, in this game, you can all start with a set inventory that everybody has, or each character has a unique loadout we could do as well. So Krauser obviously has one more focused around knives. But his abilities will grant you additional knives that you can draw for free once a turn and make knives more powerful. And there is a super powerful knife as well that you can draw hidden in the field. And yeah, it was a slow start, and I kind of mockingly made fun of how I was doing nothing and achieving nothing and contributing nothing to the group. But then when you get there and you're like, cool, I have 7 knives and they all do additional damage because of my abilities, and then you just go in there and chop the Ouroboros to death, was very, very funny, going from having turns that were completely useless to every turn I was doing over 100 damage every time, which was good fun. So that kind of silly character build being worth the investment if you can pull it off. That was a really good example that I don't think many of the other characters stand up to. Steve, how do you feel about the characters and the character skills and the theming in this?
There's an optional rule we've all kind of not talked much about, in that they give you an optional character loadouts to kind of theme your characters a bit more. For example, I think there was a game mode me and James are going to play. I cannot remember the name. It was one of the story mode campaigns. And the general thrust of it was sniper rifles weren't in it, so I wasn't going to play as Sheva. And then James pointed out, well, we can use character loadouts. So I brought one anyway, completely bust the game. It was hilarious. But the main point is that there are things, even if they have crap skills, they may actually have a decent default loadout to offset that. That being said, my experience was mostly boiled down to which characters can buff the weapons they use, which literally in my experience was Sheva, Leon, and Barry. So that's rifles, pistols, and magnums. And yeah, I felt like I was the most pointless of the team, because I was basically, how do I kill things stronger, better, faster? While everyone else got like this big emblematic strategy. Like that. No word of a lie. There was the full Yu-Gi-Oh meme with Burger in one of the turns where it's like, I summon Pot of Greed. So this allows me to summon Pot of Greed. Which like, and then, they've got like 20 cards versus my like piddly 7. So I was like, yeah, okay. Needless to say, did not feel like I was playing Leon Kennedy so much as I was playing as an idiot shuffling cards to then try and get the right combination. So yes, they don't really feel too emblematic of themselves. I appreciate that Sheva's, they're using the back box art of RE5, where she's got the sniper rifle for her art, which is why she's got the sniper rifle skills. Cool. Doesn't really relate into much of the lore of the character or anything. Barry's Magnum, yes, if they didn't do that, the game was a wash. So I appreciate they got that one right. but I don't understand Wesker's. Wesker's is just, I get more money because I've explored. That's okay. Fully. Yeah,
there were some that just seemed like, and we'll slap this on this person. I don't think anyone played as Hunk, for example. I don't know, I can't remember what Hunk's abilities were, but it must have not been good. And I think that was one of those where it was just like, he has cool abilities, but they have nothing to do with Hunk. Bergs, you mentioned some character stuff previously, but any more thoughts on the characters and their balancing?
Yeah, I did spill the beans on that a little bit. Jill Valentine's ability was explosive weapons did 5 more damage, and when your 2 explosive options in the game are grenades that do 15 up to 20, and then the rocket launcher, which is 90 up to 95. Not a very impactful ability on the game. Her second tier ability lets you not have to trash explosives when you use them. Now there's a good cookie worth nomming on, because eventually you're able to trim down your deck to a point when it's like, okay, so let's cycle back to Burger's turn so that they can draw their hand of 20 cards and kill whatever pops up in the thing. And then if we didn't get a monster, we got like a yellow herb or something, and it was like, all right, let's cycle it back. I think that like Rebecca's obviously the star character in the whole game. And in my opinion, the worst one that I played was probably Chris, because like not being able to get healed, it sucks. It sucks a lot. I almost like didn't even bother caring about what my ability setter did, just because it sucked to not. I mean, in a game where like healing isn't that particularly useful because the consequence for death. Yeah, anyway. But no, like I'm interested in seeing what other characters are in like expansions, seeing the updated rule set, see what they do to it. But yeah, other than that, the characters were kind of meh.
Okay, then let's talk about the mansion deck and the BOWs. In fact, this is an element that I have mixed feelings on. Frankly, I do like the addition of something different to the formula, and certainly a positive to some degree is that it did, and we talked about this when we played it. It did kind of have that Steamforged Games Resident Evil War game tension deck feeling sometimes, where it's like, oh, what's it gonna be? But the actual deck itself, I have lots of issues with. Yeah. The randomness is fine at first, but outside of Ada's skill, I think not being able to interact with the deck in any way just feels like a miss. It just kind of remains this mystery deck that you can't necessarily impact in any way. which is a problem because, as I think has sort of been touched on, you kind of can just get killed by pure luck. You'd be like, oh, cool, I'm set up, I'm good to go. 60 damage or whatever is pretty good, right? I'll draw a card. Oh, it's the boss. I'm dead. Or in one instance, we played for hours because the boss card, which gets shuffled into the deck at the beginning of the game, anywhere in the deck, it was the final card. So we went through the entire deck. And yeah, it just went too long by that point because we hadn't encountered it at all. Yeah, I think, Steve, you're right, in terms of the artwork in this game in general. And this, it's we'll probably talk about that next, but it's cool to see monsters throughout the series, certainly. And it was cool to be like, oh my god, look, it's the chef zombie from Resident Evil 3 randomly alongside RE2 zombie dog artwork and then minigun guy from Resident Evil 5. Like it's funny. Obviously this came out in 2010, so we've got nothing after Resident Evil 5, but going through this and being like, cool, it's stuff from everything up to the series at that point. What a weird thing that the series was only ever 13 years long at one point, but there it all is, kind of, sort of. Bergs, how did you feel about the mansion deck and the BOW stuff?
Is it controversial to say I think Steamforged did it better?
No, I don't think so. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Infinitely so.
It felt like I'm going to go ahead and talk about mention how other deck builder games typically wrap up. You usually get like a victory point system. You usually get like a life total system. There's a way for the deck to terminate. I think that the way that this game sets up its ending sucks. And I think that the mansion deck doesn't have enough variety for it other than to like, it's the enemy deck that sometimes has a prize in it. It's the worst gacha game out there. I think that I think any game where you spend turns, like in this case, like we mentioned earlier, you spend like 10 to 15 turns not even looking at it because you know that like your starting deck has at most in a given hand that you can then use maybe 25 damage. Yeah. Maybe. Right? Is that a stretch?
No, yeah, you're totally right.
So, like, the lowest enemy in the deck is like a dog at 20. So, unless you have the ideal opening hand, you literally can't look at it for a while. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even recommend looking at it until you have better than an ideal hand. It feels weird to me to be playing a board game that like half the game you just don't interact with until halfway through it when you're built up, when you're ready. And then like, all right, so we've been playing this game for half an hour, buying up all the good cards on the board. And then it's just passing through the game to clear the deck. Mm-hmm. Didn't like it at all.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And I've been sort of thinking about it today. Like, I would have loved a system kind of similar to the Steamforged stuff where there was, like the tension deck or whatever, would just evolve over the course of your campaign and that, where, events would play out and sometimes you take them out the deck or something would happen where you would add to the deck and it would get harder over the course of the game. I think this could have done with something where it's like, right, you start with these cards and you've got piddly handguns. It's a Resident Evil game, you start with handguns and knives. Yeah, you'll take some doing, but you can take out some zombies and a dog. You're never going to face down anything bigger, but that's fine because the game isn't necessarily going to throw anything bigger at you until you've taken out this many cards or you've reached this turn, in which case we suddenly start shuffling more things into the deck. And that is also, it's going to stop the boss monster from either being right at the top of the beginning or right at the bottom of the beginning, because obviously then you would plot it out where it appears at a certain point, and now things are on. So, you're right. A way to actually interact with this deck, be mindful of this deck and aware of what this deck is and what's going on with it outside of the last 10 turns in the game. Because you're right. Like, for the most part, you just kind of want to ignore it for ages, which is very, very weird because, as I said at the beginning, it's sort of the unique selling point of, like, I'm going to go kill a monster and find the boss and kill that too, except I'm not because all I have is knives. Steve, how do you feel about the mansion deck mechanic?
honestly, I feel like there needs to be more of an incentive to go in, like a ticking doom tracker or something. Like you can only have so many turns without someone going in it before it's game over, so you have to go in.
Ooh, that's good.
You know, because the everybody's right. Literally, the startup of any of these games is literally right. I'm going to buy ammo this turn. Right, I'm going to buy this weapon this turn. Now there are enemies in there that are like, I believe it's like the little tiny spidery things from RE5 that have 10 HP. There's like 3 of them. The rest of them are like 20 HP or 25 HP. I do appreciate, however, that the monsters do have unique. Some have unique attributes. Some are just pure numbers, like you have to overcome the numbers. But stuff like a JJ, a Gatling gun Magini, that literally, if you pull them and you can't kill them, and you happen to have a lot of ammo in your hand, you have just done yourself a disservice and he's rinsed your health. Hunters, much like their game counterparts, can be an absolute nightmare because they'll just destroy cards out of your hand. You have to return to the actual resource table.
The thieving hunters, stealing your weapons.
Yeah, and then their nemesis is a complete butt plug because he attacks everybody. They only take a bit of set damage, but he hurts everybody. Which is on form for Leather Daddy. He deserves the appearance. Final Boss doesn't get that. It has massive numbers and then has to get reset. So generally speaking, it's okay that there are monsters from across the series, and yes, I'll give them the credit for it though. But they don't really feel mostly like related to that. There's no Crimson Heads, at least not in the variant we played. For example, which would probably play into you kill a zombie, but it's not really dead or something. So it's fine, but there's not enough incentive to go into the deck until you're well and truly prepared. And the visual of Resident Evil where someone sat in the main hall just stockpiling gear for hours and then like, I've got the infinite ammo rocket launcher, let's go walking in. As much fun as that is as an actual game sound, it's not how much fun a board game would be. It's too easy. You just need to figure out a way to steamroll. And this is coming from a guy who doesn't know how to play deck building games, and even I can figure out that.
Yeah, I think your theory on you need to come in by a certain point is actually really cool as a way to generate cooperative conversation, which we had a lot, where we'd be like, "Ooh, my numbers are this. What do you think, everyone? Do you think I should risk it?" If you're then impacted by, well, someone needs to go in the next 3 turns or it's game over. So you then look at that number and go, is it good enough? Is the next person who plays likely to get a higher number and is better off going in? Or do we risk it? That could be a really interesting... It needs something, maybe multiple somethings. And this goes back to what I said earlier about all the elements are here. I don't know, just the rules don't bring it together for me. James, how do you feel about the Mansion deck?
I think my biggest problem... And we've all highlighted it, I think, but the fact it's so static throughout all of our games, it never changed. Other than when Steve and I played the Versus and Mercs mode, like in those modes, you would remove Ouroboros, Nemi, El Gigante, and the Hunters to play. It was like one thing. I think that every time we would go have a new story mode, and I would reset the resource field. We were all really disappointed that there was just nothing new with the mansion.
Yeah.
We're like, is there anything new? No, nothing new with the mansion.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think the later editions, they had things like infection rates and other things as well. I think that could actually make the game more interesting. You can become infected and get which I think is in itself is like a soft timer. But you still have to go in when you want to. I wanted more from it. Hopefully the future editions will add that in some way. In terms of the BOWs themselves, this is where those contradictions highlight themselves. You had the zombie butcher, when defeated by a player would mean that the attacking player can choose someone else and they just skip a turn. There were more like this as well. I think Missy was one as well. Yeah, and we just chose to ignore that ruling because it felt crap. It left a bad taste to choose someone to skip in a game that never felt like it needed that level of PvP.
Yep.
And the reason why I say it contradicts, by the way, guys, is because on a lot of the cards, it actually says this is only for versus mode, this is only for story mode. So it was very confusing. It felt like they, it felt like they knew this because to win the game, you you kill the Ouroboros. Then everyone counts their decorations, which is what you get for killing monsters, and the one with the most wins the game. I think I technically won 2 games, but my wins weren't done based on my own merits, but of the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we worked as a team to win. So we only counted the Ouroboros kill as a team win, and we left the decoration counting out.
Yeah.
But to speak positively end to end about it, like when we did get to a point to explore the mansion, I really did feel the tension there. And I think like the rest of us did too, like to a certain point. Like you were always measuring up the risk of your damage next to a card and your overall HP. And for some bloody reason, every time this happened and I got to a point where I had a really good turn, I would get a yellow herb or a token card or like a rocket launcher or something. Every time this happened, I was really excited to like take something big, and we'd only have like 10 cards left to draw, and I would always draw something that I didn't need. But for once, I am just very lucky in an RPG or a card game. I definitely wanted more out of that mansion deck, and yeah, the BOWs are incredibly contradictory. But that, like Steve said, I did like the thing with the chain gun, Magini and Nemi and the Hunter. That was cruel but fun. I liked it at the same time.
It was funny. It was the funny visual of the Hunter running away with your knives in its hands. Like it doesn't have enough knives in its hands already or something. Speaking of which, then let's talk about how this reflects and represents Resident Evil. We've talked about the game itself and how it feels to play, but coming in as Resident Evil fans, how do we feel about it on that front? I think, I mentioned before the mix of seeing stuff from different games together was very cool, and kind of felt like the Mercenaries game mode, but expanded by having stuff from 2 and 3 and Remake 1 and whatnot. But it was cool for half a second, and I really would have loved for this game to have some original artwork that actually made you stop and appreciate each card rather than just, oh, it's that piece of artwork. Okay. If you're a Resident Evil fan, you've seen all this artwork before. And I couldn't help but think of, and I know this comes from many years later, Teppen. And the really, really, even though, none of us stuck with playing that game, and I don't know how many players it's got, if people don't remember, it's the Capcom crossover card battling game we reviewed back in season 1. And it's got all kinds of Capcom franchises and stuff in it, including Resident Evil. And it reflects the wide history of Resident Evil. Characters are shown in all different outfits from the series and different scenes and stuff like that. It would have been cool to have that here, some original artwork. That said, on the positive side of things, I thought the item cards were kind of cool, the way they reflected moments from the series, or they were like cheeky references and even gameplay references. There's a card called Inventory Management, which is the picture on it is a screenshot of Remake's inventory screen, and it totally works because you're like, this might be one of the most Resident Evil cards in the game. There was a card called Deadly Aim, which felt like a very obvious thumb on the nose. There's also a Silent Hill reference, maybe, or a coincidence.
Oh, it probably
Shattered
was.
Memories. Yeah, I think it was, but we all made fun of it nonetheless. So again, that was cool for the mix of artwork and done in different ways, rather than just going, here's the character art and the monster art. The action cards they at least made you go, okay, where are we pulling from this time? They should have gone even harder with it. And original artwork would have made it really, really like a whole other thing for me. Steve, how do you feel about the representation of Resident Evil in this?
For the time, I'd say it's okay. Like, obviously, a lot of it is RE5 coded, but there are things that are elsewhere. I mean, the final boss is what Excella turns into, a Burris word I can't pronounce. So that's that. But then, you have Magini. I don't think there's actually much RE4 representation outside of some action cards.
I was trying to think that, and you say the little Plagas, I think, is the one from RE4 rather than 5. I could be wrong.
And then, I mean, you even got a Dark Side Chronicles reference with, like, literally the image of the character select screen for everyone's favourite Shattered Memories. So, no, I appreciate that clearly they had a massive resource to pull from, if nothing else. Whether there's much original artwork, excluding the elaborate table mats, really, I'm not sure. I would hope that in the expansions there is hopefully more stuff, but even then it's probably just more crib renders of like, the Outbreak cast or whoever's in it. For what it's worth, though, I'm kind of okay with it because there's just that much stuff going on. If I could pick up a card at a glance and go, right, I know what this is, I know what it's from, mainly because of prior knowledge, I'll take it. Because if everything was freshly redrawn and stuff, it takes a bit more of a learning curve. And in our case, I didn't have that to worry with. That's purely a lazy accessibility angle. Like, which is, okay. Maybe they could have done with more custom artwork here and there. But then I look at, Survival Unit, and all of a sudden I'm seeing redrawn sprites and redrawn versions of previous renders. And I'm kind of thinking, maybe we're okay.
Yeah, fair, I suppose. It's a very fine point. Bugs, how did you feel about this representing Resident Evil? Did it do an okay job?
No. And I say this, I mentioned this earlier. I spilled the beans. I beansed it. That it felt to me that this was just another video game that the wonderful people at the Bandai Namco tabletop gaming division were like, hey, let's buy this license. That license obviously comes with a bunch of key art. We'll just put that art on cards and then change some text. There's not a whole lot for me here with regard to it. It's all, like you mentioned, there's no original art at all. It's all just either screenshots from the game or pieces of, copy from promotional art. Which anybody can do, really. The Resident Evil board game fan community on Facebook did the exact same thing for the Resident Evil 2 board game several times. So, it's not... And they were more creative. No, you know what? And they were more creative with it than this board game was. Again, I'll withhold final judgment of whether or not I don't like it completely until I've seen what the other sets bring to it. But I'm not super pressed to move from my position of this felt like a cash grab for a game that they had that they needed to put a face on.
How do you feel on this, James?
I want to go back on how the deck builder works.
Okay.
It does reflect the games. You start slow. The inventory management is a large part of Resident Evil throughout the game. Then you get to the end and you have your confidence in your loadout. You have your big boomsticks. It just doesn't work very well in this format. So I can see it. I can see what they were trying to do. But in my opinion, it doesn't work. I think you can still do the same mechanics, just it's so slow to get there. A game took us average 30 to 35 turns to finish the game, which is about 2 hours of play. On paper, that doesn't seem a lot, but it felt like it really was. I just wanted to draw that parallel. The artwork was very cheap. It was reused assets from the games that were copy and pasted. If there's something I appreciate about deck building games and card games, it's art. It's the only reason you'll see me have cards from a deck building game is because I like the art in them.
Yeah.
And none of these cards screamed, "Oh, you're nice." I want to keep you. I want to keep you safe. No, they're all just reused assets with just squiggly backgrounds, a little bit muddled, and I would have liked a little bit more originality there, a bit more work. It didn't have its own identity as a game, while I was looking at it. Yeah, I recognized everything. That was fine. But yeah, I wanted more out of those cards, out of the artwork, as well as the actual overall gameplay. I did notice the respect they had for the best weapon in Resident Evil, though, the longbow.
Yes.
Seeing the longbow, I was not expecting the longbow in the weapons pile. I was I was not. When I saw it, I was like, yeah. But then I saw its price.
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's the most expensive item in the game. but without using ammo, you get free damage. So it's that's fine. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it. I'm just disappointed that we didn't get any original artwork.
Okay, cool. The last thing then is kind of also for my interest is to ask about some of the other modes. We've talked largely here about story. And again, James is right. Our experience comes from version 1.0 of this game. I know there have been changes and other stuff attached to it, and maybe we can get into that further down the line once we've had time to play the expansions. But the core game does have a few more modes, which you guys have mentioned a couple of times. So, James, you want to talk to me about Versus and Mercenaries modes?
Sure, yeah. So we'll talk about. Well, actually, do you want the good news or the bad news?
Let's start good. We've been nitpicking.
The good news. Okay, so Mercenaries is really fun. Essentially you have like a watered down deck, so everything's taken out, and all of the yellow herbs and stuff are taken out of the mansion deck as well. So all the big hitting BOWs, are taken out of the mansion deck. Yellow herbs are taken out there. The token cards are taken out there. So no rocket launcher, no Gatling gun. And instead, I'll place these time bonus cards. Now, a Mercenaries mode starts at 15 turns, and every time a full turn goes by, you tick that down. If it gets to 0, then you count points to see who wins. And the points come from combos. Every time you kill something, you get a combo, and you can keep that combo going.
Okay.
And
players playing
like
pairs
if you've
or
got
singles as well.
right, yeah, you can play as a team or you can play as full singles, yeah. You could add every time you got one of these hourglasses, you could add, depending what it said on the card, the amount of turns you had. Unfortunately, that was we had a lot of fun with it. We didn't actually finish it because I just ended up with a ridiculous amount of decorations. Mm-hmm. I was playing Claire, but I will say I think I only got 2 combos off. Everything else was just Claire being ridiculously good. She would always explore. And there is kind of a highlight of one thing I highlighted earlier in the episode about explores and the rules to do with exploring, is that the game wants you to explore with Mercenaries because it wants you to get the combos, because the combos come from the amount of cards you draw. The more cards you draw multiplies the combo of the decorations that are on the cards.
Yeah.
Right, so you want to keep comboing, you want to keep exploring. However, the exploring is not very good in this game. Like, so you can't, like, you don't have enough damage to keep exploring. So really, you can only explore a couple of times, like maximum. Mm-hmm. Like, and even that's pushing it. So you would run into this problem of, we would just draw it. Poor Steve had such bad luck.
You say that, James. Let me just cut in, in that one meme.
Okay.
But there's 2 things to consider here. James had a good string, 6 or 7 kills to my piddly 2. There is an extra rule for this mode. If you die, you're dead.
Yes.
And that's how Steve wins. I killed 2 things. James killed like half the mansion, but James died and I didn't.
I went fully into it. I had 25 HP left.
Yeah.
And I had a big round, and I decided, because again, I don't care. I just went in. I went in and I died, and if you die, you lose. So I had 18 combo points, but I still lost because I died, and Steve won with his 2 combo points.
As the core experience, I feel like we did ourselves a disservice by not all playing Mercenaries mode together. It feels like it's probably the best way to play it.
It is really fun, and I'm excited to get into the Mercenaries expansion, because I can this is just the extra mode in base set. So there's actually an entire mode made for Mercenaries. So I'm wondering how that is, made. In terms of versus is it's you against everybody, or you can have teams. And you're literally just taking shots at each other. And there are cards specifically made for PvP. And it just was very boring because you didn't have enough money to buy enough weapons to do enough damage. You have to wait because the game is very slow. You have to wait a long time. Meanwhile, your opponent is stabbing you in the face, with multiple combat knives, and and then you've got these, like Steve and I made the joke earlier about a card called Back to Back. So there's this card called Back to Back where at the end of your turn you have to draw 5 cards, and then if you draw a back to back, you can actually negate a weapon's damage by -20.
Yeah, there's another card.
So
called,
you can just
struggle for survival as well.
Yeah. So you can just negate. So every time we'd finish a turn, we'd just say, "You got back to back. You got back to back." Yes, and we just end up we were just stabbing each other constantly, just for 5 damage. It was so boring, And I ended up trying to get double magnums because Steve had this strategy of taking all the green herbs off the board, so I couldn't heal myself, and it ended up being us making a dice roll because we were just bored out of our bloody minds.
Fair enough.
James would do damage, I would heal up, I would buy my own herb back. It was a fun time for about 5 seconds, and then
and that's one of those things where it's like that's why I don't think this game was made to be PvP at all. Because when you actually put your actual PvP mechanics together, it's boring as heck to play. Like it just doesn't work. But that's what I got to say about those 2 modes.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, okay. Sounds like Mercenaries is probably worth playing then. And I am, as we move into sort of conclusions now, I am certainly interested in continuing to play. I feel like we have ripped this apart a little bit, but I had enough fun that I want to keep playing. And I guess the first thing that I kind of want to ask everyone then is actually, Choji in the live chat has asked a really great question here. If you bought the core set back in the day and tried it then, would it have made you want to go out and buy the expansions? And I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 on it because, I would, but is that mostly just because I like Resident Evil? Which is terrible behavior. But yeah, maybe if I'd have played Mercenaries mode by sound of it. But from story alone, I don't know. More of the same would have been bad, but more would have at least added variety. So I certainly would have had some pause about purchasing the expansions based on my experience with the story mode. Steve, how do you feel about that question? And also in general, how did you feel about your experience with the deck builder?
In my first hands-on real deck builder, I had a fun time, and I think I'm in a similar boat where I probably wouldn't go out my way to buy other deck building games, but I had enough of a fun time that I would pick up the other expansions. But then again, it is probably at least 70 to 80% because I'm a big Resident Evil suck up who just goes, "Oh yeah, it's got Jill and Chris in it. I can like that.
It's got the logo, I know.
Yeah, it's got the umbrella logo on it. Le gas." But no, generally speaking, from the foundation this game is laid out, I would pick up the expansions. Yes.
Fair enough. Good. James, final thoughts on deck builder, and would you have buy the expansions having played it? What you've played?
I've said it a few times, I've read a little bit about the infection stuff. So if they highlighted the infection stuff and how that could kind of change the game, and we've also had a little sneak peek at the future cards as well.
Yeah,
and some of them look way more interesting than. So if we were given like a little kind of snippet into what we could, because we did have fun. Like I know we've kind of I specifically have kind of dumped on it here, but. Like looking at the other cards and how good they were in comparison, and the infection rate system, and the fact that there's a whole mode about mercenaries, a whole expansion about mercenaries.
Yeah.
I think if I had the cash, I would definitely want to invest. Yeah. In terms of the conclusion, as I say, it's a fun game. It can create really fun moments of chaos. Even fear, at times, and
Sure.
and a lot of joy. Though I think our joy came from just being a bunch of friends playing the game. But yeah, it didn't feel complete. We had to often assume rules because they were not thoroughly explained or didn't make sense for the game we were playing or the cards we drew. The artwork and identity of the game was very generic. Cards are such a huge draw for these kind of games. Like looking at you, MTG, Final Fantasy, and Pokemon. So like to have these regular ass assets is super lame. And again, I hope it improves with later editions and with the expansions when we cover them.
Yeah, that's fair. Bugs, any final thoughts on Resident Evil the deck builder, and would this make you go out to buy the expansions?
Final thoughts. As a fan of the genre of deck building games, as a fan of Resident Evil, I probably would go and buy the expansions just to complete the set.
Yeah, that's fair.
I find that collectively speaking, deck builders do get better with expansions. I've got, talking on my shelf, I said there's 5 of them. It's actually 3, but 2 separate boxes are expansions.
Right.
So, to be fair, I am known to buy an expansion for a deck builder game I enjoy. I hope that if we see a reissue of this, it gets complete, send a graphic designer at it. So, let's contact the board game community at Resident Evil Tabletop board game on Facebook to get one of those folks to redesign the cards of this game, because speaking in terms of aesthetics, it just was not very pleasing. The game itself was fine. It was a functional deck builder game. It worked as what it did. I don't know that I agree that it felt like playing Resident Evil to me, but I'm also a big fan of the Resident Evil board game, which I think captures the feeling of playing Resident Evil a bit better than this did. I would go so far as to say a lot better than this did. To me, this felt like if I were closing my eyes, which is hyperbole, I could have been playing any other deck builder based on any other IP, without it being a Resident Evil game, and I would have felt the same way about it. Just because, again, it's a functional deck builder game that I enjoyed. I hope that when we do play the expansions, which again I am interested in playing, that we see some of the extra variety, some more fun and interesting characters come through, and it's just more enjoyable.
Okay, well, nothing else remains for me but to thank the panel, our contributors, and our community. Join us on the First Aid Spray Discord server to hear the show early and check out our merch store or our Patreon to support the show. Don't forget that these and our social media links can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. Our next episode will mark a very special occasion. Last episode was 98. This one's 99. I'm not sure what comes after that. I'll check and get back to you in a couple weeks. Thank you to the panel. You can follow the Puebla people on social media. I'm at SciWhite on Blue Sky. Steve is at FB Steve. James is at Moist Owlet OFF. And Bergs is at Biblically Correct. And finally, thank you for listening and have a good week.
Say the line, Steve. Which one?
Say the line.
There's no tarp. It's a 0 to 10 video game.
And the world will burn in an inferno of hate.
Yeah, see, we need stuff like that. We need stuff like the tarp. We need to make a First Aid Spray expansion for this, full of memes and God, the ultimate boss card of
I
Leather
summon
Daddy,
Bucket of Sand, and I will direct a movie.
We need
what
to,
a callback!
Oh my god, we need to redesign all the cards to their derpy versions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That'd be so
I
funny.
mean, just
like
get MS Paint out and say, you don't need no Mid-Journey bollocks. Check this out. I'm an artist. Look, it's even got his floofy hair. Who is it? Don't know. Probably Steve Birdside. Let's move on.